Well, for some of us, the oldest mysteries, the ones before our birth, are the most compelling and intriguing ones. Sometimes we stumble upon an answer like a very happy accident. Other times, someone just won't let go until he or she finds an answer. And sometimes, as it turns out, we just need to look in a different direction. In today's video, we're going to explore 15 of the world's most strangest mysteries that have finally been solved. Let's start off this list with number 15, the fate of the Franklin expedition. The Franklin expedition was one of history's most infamous Arctic disasters. In 1845, British naval officer Sir John Franklin led 129 men aboard HMS Erebus and HMS Terror in search of the Northwest Passage, but they never returned. For decades, all that search teams found were scattered artifacts, skeletons, and eerie accounts from local Inuit. As the mystery unfolded, experts learned that the ships had become trapped in pack ice, forcing the crew to abandon the ship. With no rescue, they succumbed to starvation, exposure, and lead poisoning from poorly canned food. Now, the most bone-chilling thing is that some resorted to cannibalism, as gruesome evidence suggested. The final mystery, the ship's locations, remained unsolved until 2014 and 2016, when Erebus and Terror were discovered perfectly preserved beneath Arctic waters. These wrecks provided long-lost clues about one of exploration's greatest tragedies, proving just how merciless the Arctic could be to those who dared to challenge it. Number 14, the Paulding Light of Michigan. For decades, the Paulding Light in Michigan baffled onlookers. A floating, flickering light appeared at night in the distance, with locals swearing it was supernatural. Some said it was the ghost of a train conductor who died in a derailment. Others believed it was a lost spirit searching for a missing grandchild. People traveled miles to witness it, hoping to capture proof of the paranormal. But in 2010, a group of college students from Michigan Tech University cracked the case. Using a telescope and cameras, they found that the mysterious light was nothing more than distant car headlights from a nearby highway. Despite the simple explanation, many locals refused to believe it. Well, don't ask us. Everyone has their own opinion. Even when presented with images proving the source, believers held on to the legend, proving that sometimes people prefer a good ghost story over the truth. So, it's not a sin to make up a story to entertain our curious minds. Number 13, the Somerton Man, mystery solved. On December 1st, 1948, a well-dressed man was found dead on Somerton Beach in Australia, with no ID, no labels on his clothes, and a cryptic scrap of paper in his pocket reading Tamam Shud, meaning ended in Persian. And we've talked a lot of time about this guy. For decades, his identity remained totally unknown, fueling wild theories, including spy conspiracies. Inside a discarded book, authorities found more cryptic markings, seemingly a code. But without a name, the mystery remained unsolved until July 2022, when DNA analysis identified him as Carl Webb, a Melbourne electrical engineer who had gone missing. It turns out, Webb was not a spy or a murder victim, but likely a man suffering personal struggles. The cryptic text? Horse racing bets. His clothes? Hand-me-downs from a US-based nephew. A mystery that stumped experts for over 70 years was solved with modern science and a bit of disappointment. Number 12, the bloop. In 1997, the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recorded a mysterious underwater noise so loud that it was detected over 3,000 miles away. When sped up, it made a strange blooping sound, leading some to speculate that it was a massive sea creature, perhaps even Cthulhu himself. For years, conspiracy theorists clung to the idea that NOAA had discovered an unknown deep-sea monster. But then, the truth emerged, and it was far less exciting. scientists determined that the bloop was actually an icequake caused by glacial movements in Antarctica. Essentially, a massive chunk of ice breaking apart sent sound waves traveling across the ocean. So, no mythical sea creatures, no hidden monsters lurking in the depths, just Mother Nature doing her thing. Well, don't know why science loves ruined the fun. Now, there are also other mysterious sounds like Tau Hum and Julia, but for now, no one has solved them. Number 11. The truth about Anastasia Romanov. Well, this one is pretty sad and unsettling. On July 17, 1918, the Romanov family was executed by Bolsheviks, marking the end of Russia's imperial dynasty. But rumors spread that Grand Duchess Anastasia, just 17 years old, had somehow escaped. With her body missing, imposters like Anna Anderson emerged, claiming to be the lost princess. For decades, theories swirled like LA wildfire. Had Anastasia survived? Stories of secret survivors and hidden royal bloodlines kept the legend alive. However, modern DNA testing in the 1990s revealed the truth. Anastasia was buried with her family all along. The missing bodies were found and identified, closing the book on the long-standing myth. Even though science confirmed her fate, Hollywood and pop culture refused to let go. Thanks to movies and fairy tales, the idea of Anastasia escaping her tragic fate remains more entertaining than the real, heartbreaking truth. So, never trust anything you see or hear. Number 10. The 20-year search for a missing opera. In 1898, renowned Spanish composer Enrique Granados wrote Maria del Carmen, an opera so beloved that the Queen of Spain awarded him the Charles III Cross. But despite its success, the original manuscript disappeared, launching a mystery that spanned a century. In 1916, Granados traveled to New York, carrying the only copy of the opera, hoping to persuade the Metropolitan Opera to stage it. When that failed, he and his wife boarded a ship back to Spain, but tragedy struck when a German submarine torpedoed their vessel in the English Channel. The couple drowned, but their 6 children survived. Years later, a son in need of money sold the manuscript to an American musician, sparking decades of legal battles. In 1970, it was believed lost in a New York warehouse fire, until music historian Walter Clark began investigating. After 20 years, in 2009, the opera was miraculously found, damaged but intact, allowing Maria del Carmen to be performed in Spain for the first time in over a century. Number 9. The disappearance of the Nazca civilization. For centuries, historians wondered what happened to the Nazca people of Peru, the civilization that mysteriously disappeared around AD 500. Best known for creating the Nazca lines, huge geoglyphs carved into the desert. Their disappearance puzzled experts for years. While the meaning behind the lines remains debated, most believe they were sacred pathways used for rituals. But what truly led to their downfall? Modern scientists now believe the Nazca people unintentionally caused their own destruction. By clearing too many huarango trees to make room for farmland, they devastated their environment. These trees played a vital role in maintaining soil fertility, moisture, and shielding against desert winds. Then disaster struck. A major El Niño event triggered severe floods, washing away what little vegetation remained. With their once thriving farmland reduced to an arid wasteland, the Nazca were left unable to sustain themselves, leading to the collapse of their civilization. Number 8. The Cambyses cover-up. For centuries, historians searched in vain for the lost army of Persian king Cambyses II, said to have vanished in a sandstorm around 524 BC. According to ancient accounts, 50,000 Persian soldiers marched into the Egyptian desert and never returned. But one scholar wasn't buying it. Egyptologist Olaf Kapper argued that an entire army couldn't simply disappear in a sandstorm. His research led him to Petubastis III, an Egyptian rebel leader who had been hiding in the Dakhla oasis at the time. Kapper believes the Persian forces were ambushed and defeated in battle, with the sandstorm story being a fabricated cover-up to protect Persia's reputation. 2 years later, King Darius I crushed the rebellion, reclaiming control of Egypt. But to avoid public embarrassment, the Persian rulers promoted the sandstorm myth instead of admitting their army had been wiped out by local resistance. In the end, history was rewritten to hide a humiliating defeat. Number 7. What really caused the Hindenburg explosion? On May 6, 1937, the Hindenburg, a massive hydrogen-filled airship, prepared to land in Lakehurst, New Jersey. Within seconds, it erupted into a fiery disaster, killing 35 people and marking the end of the airship era. For decades, scientists debated what ignited the explosion. So, was it lightning? A bomb? Flammable paint? In 2013, a team of experts finally cracked the case. Their research found that the Hindenburg had built up static electricity while passing through a thunderstorm. A leaking hydrogen valve or damaged wire released gas into the airship's ventilation shafts. Then, a static spark ignited the hydrogen, causing an instant explosion. British aeronautical engineer Jem Stansfield, who led experiments replicating the event, explained, "The fire started at the top, and the flames tracked downward, igniting the gas mixture. When it reached the bottom, that's what caused the massive explosion." Science finally put the mystery to rest, though some still prefer conspiracy theories. All right, guys, now let's move to Number 6. The Moroccan village built on a rock pile. Perched at 13,000 feet above sea level, the village of Aroumd in Morocco's high Atlas Mountains sits atop a massive pile of rocks. For over 130 years, scientists puzzled over how those rocks got there. Initially, experts believed a glacier deposited them, but modern dating techniques revealed something more dramatic. The rocks came from a landslide triggered by an earthquake 4,500 years ago. The village rests near a major tectonic fault, and though glacial erosion likely weakened the cliff, a quake was the final trigger. Beyond its geological mystery, Aroumd has an eerie reputation. Researchers have reported unexplained accidents, mystery illnesses, and even violent whirlwinds. Lead researcher Philip Hughes joked about a curse after encountering powerful winds that made standing impossible, something highly unusual for the region's typically calm climate. Coincidence? Well, maybe. But the legend of Aroumd's mystery continues. Number 5. How Mary Ingalls really went blind. For generations, readers of Little House on the Prairie believed that Mary Ingalls lost her sight to scarlet fever at age 14. But in reality, that doesn't add up. Dr. Beth Tarini, a pediatrician, was shocked when her professor disputed the claim, sparking a 10-year medical investigation. Historical records showed Mary did have scarlet fever as a child, but at 14, she was diagnosed with brain fever, without the rash characteristic of scarlet fever. Digging deeper, researchers uncovered newspaper articles from the Ingalls hometown, reporting that Mary had suffered severe headaches and partial facial paralysis. Then came the breakthrough, a letter from Laura Ingalls Wilder to her daughter in 1937, revealing that Mary's optic nerves were paralyzed after being taken to a Chicago specialist. The real culprit? Viral meningoencephalitis, which inflames the brain and spinal cord, sometimes leading to permanent blindness. So, while scarlet fever played a role in Mary's childhood, it was a very different illness that took her sight forever. Number 4. The man who forgot his identity. Imagine waking up with no memory of who you are. That's exactly what happened to a man named Pierre April in May 1992. Found wandering the streets of San Diego, he had just $17 in his pocket and no idea where he came from. As he stayed in a shelter, fragments of his past resurfaced. Faces, skills, fleeting memories, but no solid answers. In September 1992, his case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, where he expressed hope that something would click. "I was sure this city would bring everything back, but it didn't." Then, an old colleague named Carol saw the episode and recognized Pierre. She contacted the show's tip line, providing the missing pieces of his identity. Thanks to one person watching at the right time, Pierre was reunited with his family. His memory, however, never fully returned, leaving parts of his past forever lost. Number 3. The Mystery of the Umbrella Man. In November 1963, the assassination of John F. Kennedy fueled countless conspiracy theories, but few were as strange as the Umbrella Man. Amid the sunny Dallas weather, a lone man stood on the sidewalk holding an open black umbrella, right at the moment JFK was shot. For 15 years, speculation ran wild. Was he signaling the gunman? A government agent? A second shooter? The mystery remained until 1978, when a man named Louis Stephen Witt came forward before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. His explanation? The umbrella was a protest symbol. He said it was meant to mock JFK's father, who had supported British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, often seen with an umbrella, before World War II. The revelation was incredibly underwhelming. Conspiracy theorists wanted a grand revelation, but instead, they got one man's obscure political statement, a letdown wrapped in black fabric. Number 2. Gospel of the Lots of Mary. Discovered in Egypt, this 1,500-year-old manuscript was long assumed to be a gospel about Jesus Christ. But when Princeton University professor Anne-Marie Luyendijk finally translated it, she realized it was something else entirely. A Christian oracle book. Written in Coptic Greek, the text wasn't about Jesus' life or teachings. Instead, it was a fortune-telling guide used like a magic 8-ball to provide cryptic answers to life's questions. The book's vague predictions, such as, "Do not be of two minds, it will happen," made it easy to interpret for any situation. These lot books were common tools for divination in the ancient world, but what set this one apart was its title, calling it a gospel, which means good news. This suggests that early Christians may have viewed gospels differently, not just as biographies of Jesus, but also as spiritual guides to everyday life. So where did it come from? Well, that's it. No one knows anything. The manuscript was donated to Harvard in 1984, but its true origins remain a complete mystery. Number 1. The Mystery of the Missing Opera. For over 70 years, Maria del Carmen, the lost masterpiece of Spanish composer Enrique Granados, was believed to have perished in a warehouse fire in New York. But one historian refused to accept that fate, and after 2 decades of searching, he proved the world wrong. Granados wrote the opera in 1898, winning royal praise, but despite its success, it was never performed again. In 1916, he traveled to New York with the only copy, hoping to convince the Metropolitan Opera to stage it. When they declined, he set sail for Spain, but a German submarine attack in the English Channel ended his life. Miraculously, the manuscript survived, eventually being sold by his son to an American musician. Then, in 1970, a fire supposedly destroyed the opera until music historian Walter Clark started digging. In 2009, he found it, damaged but intact. A century later, Maria del Carmen was finally performed again in Spain in 2015. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.